how would it be in the interests of those people who want control, financial control, international control over the masses? Why would it be in their interests to be transparent? Because these guys don't operate from a place of love, clearly.
Oh, it's not in their interest to be transparent.
Sure. So how do we create more transparency when these are the very people who wield the greatest power? Say, for example, you mentioned the media. Now, the media, we have the internet, absolutely. The internet, although it's such an open tool, it is still controllable by various organizations. For example, Saudi Arabia, recently, it's been in the news that BlackBerries they're banned, or they've switched off the internet from BlackBerries and instant messaging, for example. So we know also that Obama has a switch to switch off the internet from Washington at any point they choose. So these people,
wait a minute,
you're absolutely right, it's not in their interest, but how do we get to a point where we can put people in places of power who we truly democratically elect and who will be transparent? How do we get to that? Because that's a big jump from following our passions, doing the best we can for ourselves and the people immediately around us. It's a big jump from that to then dealing with people who financially and in terms of politically more or less own the world.
Yes, well, somebody, forget who now, said science evolves one funeral at a time. And meaning the old scientists have to die off before things change. And I think it may be the same way with our economic system. And I would certainly say that our energies should be on the young people. In Brazil a couple of years ago, I was with a large conference of young people from all over the world, and I said to them, and 60% of them were Brazilians, I said, if I were you, I would find out what private schools the children of the rich and famous are in and reach them and start talking to them now about what they plan to do with their inheritance and see if you can seduce them into making a better world. And they said, we're ahead of you. We've already got 3 inheritances promised to us.
Wow.
So I think it's a wonderful strategy that could be employed all over the world.
Absolutely. And we certainly need to employ them here in the UK because there's plenty of those kind of people we can be supporting for sure. Now, Konstantin, how about yourself? I mean, what about this transparency? I mean, how can we, Elisabet made a suggestion as to getting, targeting and working directly with young people and educating them. How about yourself? What thoughts do you have of making this a more transparent world?
I think at this stage, the degree to which the intensity of the way in which powers that be have tried to create a stranglehold over the economy, the effect it's had on the environment and the ecology, agriculture, and basically our overall experience of life through medicine, through education, and the workforce itself indicates to me that the grassroots level obviously is the first level that everybody needs to begin with because that's where the majority of the populace is. But it also has to be worked from the top down regarding trying to share with these individuals alternative ways where they can still have a sense of power and control, but by offering opportunity for transformation where absolutely everyone is going to benefit, and that way they can come out real heroes and not just nasty ones. And also from the middle level, which is basically the services and the what I consider to be the indoctrinational institutes where they're not the schools themselves as much as the institutes that train people to become specialists in their fields. So it needs to be a multi-level approach from the top down, the bottom up, and the center straight through to the heart of where everything has begun to go wrong and become rotten. Where youth is concerned, definitely to work with them. This is one of my major objectives and goals, and that is to have them to implement a process which steers more away from education, which unfortunately focuses mostly on empowering a mentor to have the fundamental task of searching and looking for what the talents and skills of an individual are, only to take them out and put them into boxes so they can fit into mechanistic facilitation of society, and take them through more a process of morphosing, which is the process of becoming their true and essential self. And that's why I always hearken back to steer away as much as possible from being driven by survival and enter into the realm of creativity as a function of something outside of the self to be experienced through life itself, so that one can actually begin to explore and understand that essential quality, because that is what brings one back to their true essential nature. By that I mean to be more like the universal consciousness and not like just a single individual being's consciousness, because that unfortunately is much more strongly driven by the survival to stay alive.
So when we move out of survival, Elisabet, when we move out of survival, what happens to us? What happens to the human mind, the human condition?
When we move beyond survival mode?
Yes.
Well, one wonders, because we're not even in survival mode yet, in a sense. I puzzle over the fact that we have this wonderful consciousness, this ability as humans to build scenarios, to look into a linear future, to see that if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same results. So we can see all the disasters converging now, the environmental disasters and the economic disasters, the political disasters, all coming together now, and yet we don't really act as if they are upon us. So I'm a little bit confused about why we, like all the other species before us who didn't have the advantage of such foresight, have to wait until we're literally driven into cooperation. It's not about human nature, because although they say human nature is competitive, the economists, again, it's in the interest of the powers that be to say that, but we know perfectly well that the minute there's a flood or a fire or an earthquake or anything, 99% of the people roll up their sleeves and start to help each other. It's just as much in our evolutionary bones to cooperate with each other as it is to compete. And I puzzle at why we wait and wait and wait. But I guess in the end, humans choose, comfort. They don't like discomfort. They don't have very adventurous souls on the whole. And this is confusing for people like myself and other evolutionary leaders who do have adventurous souls and who, want to rally people up to build that clean green world now.
Absolutely.
So it's difficult. It's difficult because people say, well, I just want to, I come home, my own grandchildren say, when I come home from work, I'm too tired to care about what's going on in the world. And the economic depression, I refuse to call it a recession, this new depression is making it worse. People are trying desperately to hold on to their jobs. And, it's not because there isn't enough money in the world. We know how to get out of a depression, but the powers that be seem to want the depression to deepen. And this is a sad point. Because, there are ways of fixing depressions. After the 1929 depression, local communities all printed their own script, their own alternative currencies, and that's how they survived, to be able to have a currency that would support each other and that wasn't a debt money system. If you do negative interest money, it will revive an economy in no time flat. Somebody back then in the early 30s said we would revive this economy in 2 weeks, with a negative interest money system. But instead, we went into a war economy, which finally pulled us out, and we've been in one ever since. So this is something that's very important for young people to understand, and there are many